Most of us are afraid to witness life moving on without us. We fear being forgotten, being replaced, missing our moment. But the last 3 years taught me something different. Sometimes life isn't moving on without you. Sometimes life is rather preparing you for yourself. And the preparation really looks the way we imagine it will. The last 3 years allowed me to surrender to a beautiful God, my goodness, who eventually made all of it make sense to me. Of course, not immediately and not even quickly, but eventually he did. If I may say this, there's a kind of silence that isn't absence but formation, sis. And for a long time I didn't have the language for that, because when you step away, especially from something public, something people loved, something that once occupied a visible part of your life, people naturally assume that you've disappeared, that you've lost momentum, that you've given up, that you've moved on. But what if you were actually being rebuilt? What if the quiet wasn't a detour? But what if the quiet was the work itself? Living Content Era 2 is for the person who's already on the journey and is ready to go even deeper. It's for the deeply reflective human who knows that the gap between external success and internal alignment is real and is no longer willing to paper over it. It's for the woman who holds a lot in her home and her career and her community and is starting to ask harder questions about who is she beneath everything she carries. It's for anyone who is excellent in every room and quietly unsettled on the drive home. It's for anyone who has done enough living to know that who you are on the inside shapes everything that happens on the outside, and who wants to talk about it honestly, without performance and without pretending. Hello sis and the brother in the room. I want to say that I see you too. Hello family, welcome to Living Content Podcast. It's been a while. 3 long years is a while, and not in a casual way that we say that. Not as though nothing significant happened between then and now. This is the kind of while that does not only carry time or years. This is the kind of while that carries weight. And I know that between you and I, there is no possibility that we are the same people who last heard from one another 3 long years ago. There is no way. 3 years is enough time for entire lives to shift, sis. For prayers to change, for dreams to evolve, for grief to soften up, and for courage to emerge, for God to quietly transform a person through ordinary days. The kind of transformation that is not loud, that meets you in the quiet spaces alone with yourself. The kind that sneaks through the mundane, through cumulative decisions, through showing up when nobody is applauding, through choosing again and again who you want to become, through learning to trust yourself again, through the pivots, through starting all over again, and through endings and through quiet beginnings. I do not take all of that for granted, so it's worth recognizing that something must have shifted. Something has shifted between now and then. For 3 years, that is enough time for a lot to change between you and I think you know that. I didn't step away because I had nothing to say. I stepped away because I needed to hear myself clearly again. I stepped away because I had made a commitment to myself to finish what I had started. And I think if you listen to the last episode of the last season, I made it clear I actually didn't know that I was so clear in that podcast what I was going to do, and that the only time I were to return would be only when that commitment had been fulfilled. And that got fulfilled. And to be quite honest, some things require distance from the noise, distance from expectations, distance from performing, understanding instead of living it, distance from the pressure to continue showing up as a version of yourself that is still forming. And somewhere in that quiet, through writing, through motherhood, through faith, through unlearning, through sitting with questions that didn't have immediate answers, I met a different version of myself. Not louder, not more certain, not more impressive, just more honest. I must say, this season of the podcast isn't a continuation. It's a return, not to who I was, but to something more truer. And perhaps that has always been the purpose of this space. For me, it has not felt performative. It has felt like coming to this mic and being honest, sharing stories with some of my guests and sharing my own story and my own evolution. It has not been a performance, no perfection, but presence. This has been the kind of presence that asks, who are you when you are not trying to be understood? Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when you stop rushing what is still forming? So if you are here, whether you've been here from the beginning or you've just arrived, this isn't a space for quick answers. This is a place for remembering, for returning, for becoming someone you can trust, and maybe for hearing yourself a little more clearly too. Now, let's begin. For a long time, we've sat together in conversations about healing, about understanding ourselves, about tracing the histories of our pain, about naming what hurts us, about making sense of what shapes us. And that work is sacred. It is necessary, but it isn't the end of the story. Because eventually a question emerges. What do we do with everything we've uncovered? What do we do with all the awareness, all the insights, all the healing? What do we do with the beauty, the grief, the clarity, the confusion, the lessons, the scars, sis? What do we do with all of that we have uncovered? How do we take what life has placed in our hands and alchemize it into a life that doesn't leave us behind? A life that grows with us. I've always been clear that I will not do anything that leaves me behind, that does not evolve with me, and that does not reflect me. So how do we build one? A life that grows with us, a life that reflects us, a life we are fully present in and that we enjoy living at the center of. Because this next phase isn't just about understanding yourself. It's about leading yourself. It's about choosing intentionally to build a life that requires your participation. A life that asks you to trust yourself. Buckle up. To trust yourself, to be seen, to take up space, to stop existing at the margins of your own life. And I think what became undeniable during my time away is just how timely God is. There are versions of ourselves we believe we are ready to step into until life reveals that we are just still being prepared. This season of showing up like this couldn't have happened 3 years ago, to be quite honest, because I hadn't yet become the woman who could hold it. There was more work to do, more surrendering, more healing, more stewardship, more trust, more leaning on God Himself when I didn't have the answers. Because preparation doesn't always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like obscurity. Sometimes it looks like continuing to show up without evidence. Sometimes it looks like watering seeds nobody can see, trusting the roots before the fruit, and believing before proof. I turned 33 this year, and when I reflected on the years behind me, I realized I wasn't most proud of the milestones. I was most grateful for the person those years required me to become. Ah, man, even saying that makes me so teary. This year alone has helped me so much. I received awards at work that reflected years of unseen effort. The book I once wrote quietly has now gone into its second reprint. I've been experimenting with new ways of showing up online, allowing myself to become more visible, more honest, more willing to let my story be witnessed while it is still unfolding. And through all of it, I have learned something important. Being seen is not the reward. Being fully present in your own life is. On the other hand, at home, life has been changing too. We welcomed my niece into our home. My son turned 3 this year. My daughter continues to create with a confidence that amazes me. She's done very creative things that even I at her age didn't really quite think of. Watching children grow has taught me something beautiful. They don't become overnight. They become through repetition, through ordinary days, through tiny acts of courage, through showing up again and again. And perhaps that is how transformation happens for us too, right? So this past week, life reminded me of that lesson again. I found myself unexpectedly admitted to hospital. What was meant to be a simple observation became a procedure. My leg was bandaged, plans stopped, schedules changed, meetings were put on hold, life interrupted itself. And surprisingly, I wasn't frustrated because I had prepared. For weeks I had been working ahead, making room and building margins. And for the first time in a long time, I was able to surrender completely to rest, to welcome it, to receive it, and to allow it, to trust again that God knows why things were unfolding and happening just the way they were. Lying there, I found myself reflecting on the first 5 months of this year, and there were so many moments where all I could say was, suddenly God. I saw this on TikTok. I think it might have been on TikTok on someone's WhatsApp status, that those moments of suddenly God. This year, I can attest that I saw that myself. Suddenly God in many, many occasions, in opportunities, in open doors, in answered prayers, in unexpected provisions. But what moved me the most wasn't the breakthrough. It was remembering the waiting season. The months where there was no confirmation at all. The seasons where I couldn't see how anything would work out. At all. The days where all I had was a quiet conviction to remain still and to keep on going and to trust. And maybe that's why this return feels different, because I'm no longer returning from a place of needing to prove anything at all. I'm returning because something became clear. The work was never only in arriving to a certain moment, to a certain listenership. I mean, there's many podcasts in the world right now, more than years ago when I started. I don't need to add to those numbers. So the purpose of this podcast must be bigger than that. The work was never only in arriving. The work was becoming the person capable of carrying what was arriving. For months now, I have been preparing for this podcast return. Some of you may have noticed I became quieter on Substack. That wasn't because I stopped loving the space. It had quite been the opposite. I care deeply about the things I am building, enough to honor my capacity, enough to choose sustainability over performance, enough to create rhythm that allows me to remain present. And perhaps that's another lesson this season has taught me. Consistency isn't being everywhere. And I like doing that. I like being everywhere. With my ADHD brain, I like to start new things and to do everything all at the same time. But consistency is not being everywhere. Consistency is showing up truthfully where you are, right? Let me tell you about this encounter that happened, this beautiful encounter that happened a few weeks ago. I went with a women's book club in Pretoria, and this is worth the mention because I wouldn't be here today, funny enough, if it wasn't also from that nudge. And one of the women there, Grace, I need to name her because I did even say to her that, my goodness, you're a godsend. She had something that stayed with me. She told me that she had been listening to this podcast for years and she had simply been waiting for it to return. Nothing more, just waiting. And in that moment, I realized I had spent too much time believing I needed to return perfectly. With the video format of this podcast on YouTube, just as with all the podcasts that I've been seeing around, with a cleared, laid out strategy, with everything figured out. But that's not why people connected with the space. People connected because of the reflections, the stories, the honesty, and the companionship, the feeling of having someone sit beside you on your drive to work or drive back home. And so I stopped waiting for perfect. This season returns the way it first began, with stories, with reflections, with honesty, with presence, and maybe that feels fitting because this entire chapter of my life has been teaching me that what is real really arrives polished. It arrives honest, and honesty has always been enough. The last time I sat behind this microphone, I was a mother of one. Now I am a mother of two, and now I have a daughter and a son. And there's something profound about realizing that there are little people watching your life unfold. And I mean, learning from it, referencing it, modeling it, not just listening to what you say, but studying how you live your life. And it makes you ask and wonder to yourself, what am I showing them is possible? What am I teaching them about courage, about ownership, about self-trust? Because when we hand over our lives to fear, to approval, to perceptions, to people's opinions, that's what they sadly learn to do too. Yeah. And like I said, somewhere during the 3 years, I authored a book, not simply as an achievement, but as an anchor, as an encounter as well, with my voice, with my truth, with the parts of me that needed to be written into the light, that needed to be written down. And writing, it required the same thing this season is requiring from me now, to stand in what is mine and not shrink it. So this is where we begin again, not from the beginning, but from somewhere deeper, an honest place, a more embodied place, a place where we are no longer processing life, but actively building it. We are no longer only healing, but we are leading our lives in our homes, in spaces that we occupy. And as always, I want you to sit with yourself for a moment, not to rush forward. I know it's a Tuesday today when you're listening to this, when it lands, or maybe you're listening during the time of the week, any time of the week, but I hope that you spare this time to sit down with yourself and to reflect. As always, I always leave you with some journaling prompts, and I will share this on our social media platform as well, so that you come and follow us. You cannot just be here on this podcast platforms, right? You have to come and follow us as well. I will share these during the course of the week so that on Saturday morning, be it a Saturday morning or on a Sunday morning, you are able to ground yourself and to journal these down. I'll try to actually bring back sacred solitude with my tea, because those were the moments we sat with our hot beverages and we started journaling, and this was our sacred time we spent with ourselves. And so I think because I enjoyed them for myself too, I'm gonna bring them back, right? So we are building this airplane while we're flying it, and I want you to be my co-pilot in the process. I'm not leaving you behind, sis. You are part of the host of this podcast, because you reminded me when I was away that your life didn't just change when the podcast went away, but something shifted. And so for me to be able to sustain it and to keep on coming here, I need you to be my co-pilot, to call me out, right, where I get it wrong, to teach me from your perspective, from your own lens, where I might not be seeing things the way you are, and to share, because the community also wants to know what you are thinking, not just listening to my voice alone. And I do know that people listen to this podcast are proper thinkers. You guys are thinkers. I mean, I was at a book club and I was like amazed that it reached that far. And it reaches other countries as well. So even from whichever country that you are, I invite you to even share. Which country are you listening from? Share how this podcast has impacted your life. Share it from any platform that you listen to the podcast. And I tell you this, it is not just in vain. It goes far. So let me get back to sharing the journaling prompts with you. So I've created 5 journaling prompts for you to sit down with yourself, as I've mentioned, to actually sit with your hot beverage and journal down. And these are the prompts. 1. Where in my life have I been present in understanding but absent in action? Where in my life have I been present in understanding but absent in action? What part of my life have I quietly handed over to fear, perception, or approval? Sometimes we might think that there isn't any, but what's making that decision for you? Is it fear? Is it perception? Or is it approval? Or is it you? What would it look like to take full ownership of my life, practically, not just emotionally? Where am I being called to be seen that I have been avoiding? What kind of life am I modeling for those who are watching me and for myself? And if you take anything from this episode, let it be this. You are not here to stand at the edges of your own life. You are not here to dilute your presence to become more palatable, to become more acceptable. You're not here to wait until you feel ready enough to begin. The quiet was never proof that nothing was happening. Sometimes the quiet is where God builds the capacity required for what comes up next. And this is just to affirm you. Let's go through this affirmation together. I have my hand open as though I'm holding your hand in this moment. Just to breathe in. Don't close your eyes because you might be driving. But just to breathe in and to take it all in. I choose to return to myself. I choose to lead my life with honesty and courage. I trust that what is mine will meet me as I show up fully. I honor the seasons that prepared me. I honor the person I became while nobody was watching. I trust God's timing in my life. I am no longer waiting to take my place in my own life. Sis, I hope it doesn't take long to remember that this life belongs to you. Until next time, do take care of yourself. And remember, the life you're building is also building you. Alrighty? See you in the next episode. Bye. Take care. Thank you for listening to this episode. I really do appreciate you for being here. Please remember to share your love openly here by subscribing, sharing these episodes, and also just adding your feedback on the reviews. So this podcast can also be easily found by those in similar journeys and needing the message here. I would love to hear how the podcast is helping you. So do share that too with me, and be sure to check the podcast out on Instagram. Keep well. Chat to you soon.